You're listening to Business Lunch with Roland Frasier. This is your seat at the table.
Hey everybody, Roland Frasier here with Business Lunch. Very, very excited to have two very cool guests today, and that is Roslyn and Mike Rozbruch, and they have done some really cool things with taxes of all things. It's like one of the things that's near and dear to my heart because my father's a 45-year now practicing tax attorney and worked with the IRS and all that stuff when he was coming up, still doing it. So I hear about it all the time. And you guys have found a way to add that to existing accountants' practices to make them significantly more profitable. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, it's amazing that most accountants who have practices and have a book of business don't realize they have gold. They have cases sitting right in their database that they don't know they have because their clients don't know they actually do this kind of work as a practice area.
That's so cool. And then I was also reading lately that if you look at businesses with the highest profit margin and greatest growth for 2020, tax planning and controversy comes up repeatedly, which is kind of surprising. Why do you think that is?
Well, because it's a different pricing model. When you're doing controversy work or planning, it's based on value pricing. You know, what value you bring to the table, what can you save them from a tax planning standpoint in go forward tax liability. And from a controversy standpoint, you're basically getting them out behind the eight ball. So you're not billing by the hour. And I think that's
a motivated buyer too, right?
Yes. You have a very motivated buyer. You know, I used to view the IRS as my marketing partner because every time they issued a notice, a federal tax lien or a levy to a third party, it was great. They were calling my office. I didn't have to do that much marketing because I had the IRS do the marketing.
That's so cool. Well, tell us a little bit about, so you guys have been together for quite a while, right? And working as a team in this business?
We've been working together for 6 years.
Married for 35.
We celebrated our 35th wedding anniversary recently.
So those 6 years have not had a negative effect, have actually had a positive effect on working together.
Yeah,
I think so. I think we do work well together.
This is awkward if either of you say, well, actually, so don't do that.
Well, actually, I think our relationship and marriage has actually gotten stronger these last 6 years. Now, don't get me wrong. There were some bumps in the road, early on, figuring out everyone's strengths and weaknesses and everything else. But Roslyn brings to the table, number one, she keeps me out of trouble. Number two is she has a journalism background, so she's excellent at writing. I do the teaching, we transcribe the stuff I teach, and then Roz productizes it and edits it and puts it in, packages it up for sale. She also does all our mastermind event planning and our big annual event, which is now going virtual.
So that was a big pivot. When Michael had his first business, which he had for 16 years, where he really helped people with IRS problems, at the time I was working at a magazine as assistant editor at Los Angeles Magazine, and it was a dream job. So we weren't going to work together very well then. But now there were certain things that I was working part-time to help, and I think that's when we saw that we could work together. And I just think that we just do separate things. The things that I do, Michael doesn't like to do, and what he does, I don't have any education in, so that's why we work well together.
That's great. So tell me the story. How did you get started? And then, because I'm assuming you had a practice to start with, and then you decided to kind of make the leap into info. Would you describe kind of like where you were and a little bit about that journey for us?
Yeah. So, everything in life has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And, after 16 years in my tax resolution practice, I had 125 people in 15,000 square feet. I mean, we were servicing between 3,000 to 4,000 clients a year. And, it was time for me to exit. And I always thought, I did all the training at my firm. I did not only the technical training, but I also did a lot, of course, all the marketing and the advertising. I was the face of the company. I did all the interviews, I did all the videos, I did all of that. And this was probably like 2011, 2012, 2013, when online was starting to explode. I knew I wanted to do something online. And at the time, with my current business I had some, look, a partnership is like a marriage. And this one didn't, it was like a divorce. This was like a nasty divorce. And thank God for this lady, because she's the one who saw what was going on and like pulled me out of the fire.
Nice.
There was a short window of opportunity for her to pull me out of the fire. Otherwise, who knows? I still might even be there. And I knew I wanted to do something online. And look, every time I went to an event and I would be with my peers, I always would scratch my head, because these guys, these CPAs and EAs and tax attorneys, were a lot smarter than me technically, Roland. I mean, it took me 3 times to pass the CPA exam. I was a C+ student in college. I was not like, the smartest tool in the shed when it came to, book learning. However, I knew how to connect with people. I knew how to transfer emotion. I really cared about helping people. And I would always scratch my head thinking, why are these guys struggling? Why are they're just struggling all the time? They went to the best schools, passed the CPA the first time, graduated college cum laude, and that didn't guarantee them success. So the missing part was the marketing. So I started taking surveys at these seminars and conferences, and the biggest thing was, I don't know how to market. I don't know how to get leads. I don't know how to close the sale. So I said, you know what? I'm going to start an online business. And we didn't know what the heck we were doing back in June 2014. I did a 4-hour launch without no list, not knowing what I was doing. And I think 750 people showed up and 400 people bought a 297 product. And that launched this business.
That is a heck of a launch. So how did you do that? Not having a list or not knowing how to do any of this stuff?
Well, one of the most important things I can convey to anyone who's listening, who's thinking about doing that, the tax resolution industry is only 22 years old. Prior to 1998, there was no such thing as tax resolution. Then President Clinton signed the 98 Tax Reform and Restructuring Act, which gave birth to this industry. So there was 3 of us who were on the ground floor, and I had affinity with those folks. They were like the friends of mine. One guy does all the technical education. The other guy does the software case management, and I'm doing the marketing. So I went to them and I said, hey, Jamie, hey, Larry, would you mind if you sent a few emails? I'm doing this thing. Would you mind sending some emails? But more importantly, I said, I want you to join me on the launch. So I flew them out to Colorado. So they were in the launch. I interviewed them. So they felt really good about emailing their list. And that's how I got those people.
Oh, well done. I like it. Now, was there any particular education that you took to kind of help you with that? Like Jeff Walker's thing or anything like that? Or
there were a few things that happened along the way. And one of them was in October of 2013. And you might want to tell the story. 3 people told Michael to read a particular book.
Yes,
this
planted the seed.
Really?
So fortuitously, 3 people who didn't know each other told me to read Brendan Bouchard's Millionaire Messenger.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, good.
And I read that book, and
we signed up to go to his Experts Academy
in March of 2014. Which was incredible.
Right, but we went to a Dan Kennedy GKIC event, a conference in November of 2013. So we went to the conference. We kind of bought everything.
I'm like everything. One of your great people you want at your conference. I think we bought $30,000 worth of product. We bought everybody's product.
Right. We just had a launch with Mars. It was like had a product launch and a few other things.
I did have a coach though. We did have a coach at the beginning.
We just like started doing it. He was still at his business.
I was still at my company.
He was having a hard time figuring out how to, exit. And I told Michael, see, we've kind of a different mindset. And Michael,
she had a lot more faith in me at that time because I was beaten down by my partner. I was not in a good mindset at that time.
So at the time he was very profitable. He was making a lot of money, but he was miserable. So I had a lot of money in the bank. We had a lot of equity in the house. And I just said, we can start over. Won't this be fun? Our kids are out of the house. I was like, this will be so fun, a new adventure.
That's awesome.
And we went to Brendan Burchard's event, and that did it because
after coming back from that event, we had this huge mediation at my company, and it went on for 14 hours. And that Brendan Burchard event gave me the courage and the insight to tell the attorneys wanted to go home at 6 p.m. and get dinner. And I stood up, I shut the door, and I said, neither one of us are leaving this room until we hammer out a deal. And we left there at about 11:30 p.m. with a disengagement agreement, and that was the end.
That's great.
And the other thing I had said to Michael was, just take whatever deal you can take, because he's the one that built his first company. He could sit in any chair, do anything. And I go, I know you could do it again. And I believe in you. And you just want to be free, because we could do this again, and I'll be your business partner.
Yeah, I walked from that company. I did not sell it. I walked out. I walked away because I was getting physically sick. Every time I take my key to open the front door, the first place I would go would be to the men's room. I mean, I just needed to get out of that environment, and I didn't care what it took. I just wanted out so bad.
I love that. And I love that you like, it's really cool that going to Brendan's thing, you got the confidence to do that. Dan, you mentioned Mars. Was that Mars Burden?
Yes. Yeah. Mars was the guy who did our first launch back in June of 2014.
Well, you started with like the cream of the crop, because Mars is just an amazing good friend of mine. Amazingly talented guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Look, one thing I learned early on, Roland, if you want to learn something, just find the best expert in that space, hire him, do whatever you got to do.
I agree 100%.
I mean, that's what we
did. Did he do a discovery day with you guys?
Yeah, he did. It was like,
the day before, right?
Yeah, he did a discovery. We had a couple of conversations. We didn't know what we were doing.
By the way, he sold that product at GKIC. I think retail was $10,500. He sold it for $3,500. So he did this launch for $3,500.
You got an insane deal. Yeah. That's so cool. Well, it's funny because you can talk with him, but the discovery day, he was having trouble with his business and he couldn't figure it out. And I said, you need to do a discovery day. And so he's like, every time I talk to him, he's like, man, that's the best thing you ever told me was this discovery day. It just changed everything. So yeah, that's great. I can't believe you got to start out with him. So with Brendan, who's a good friend, and Dan, who I don't know if Dan has any friends, but I definitely know Dan.
Yeah, he has a couple. We know of one.
Right, we know one friend.
Yeah. By the way, though, to give him kudos, I started my tax resolution business with Magnetic Marketing back in 1998.
Magnetic Marketing is still amazing, right?
Yes.
That's great. I love that. So I had a similar, it wasn't because of the partners, it was other stuff, but I had a similar restart with law and I just wasn't happy with it at all. And, and I like you, I just walked away from it. And it's so exhilarating though to get, like, when you don't like something anymore, you've like maybe you liked it when you started because that's how you built it and everything, but when it's like you're done with that, it's just a drag every day to go in, right? And so now you're like, look at you guys, you're smiling, you're happy, and you're doing cool stuff, and I believe you're probably even making some money, right?
We're doing very well. So it's been sweet. We have a small staff. It's me and Roslyn and 3 team members on payroll, and everything else we outsource.
Right. And it's fun because like our kids are out of the house and we travel a lot. We learn together. We're on this adventure together. We've met a lot of really great people that we've just become friends. And so I think that I feel very lucky because we are learning together, growing, besides having a company that we enjoy working together.
We've done so much in personal development during these 6 years. I mean, being in these masterminds, of course, Genius Network, Dan Sullivan, strategic coach. I mean,
we've had a chance to work with Dean Graziosi. So many amazing people.
Yeah, it's been great.
Awesome. Now, as far as working together, what's kind of the secret to working with your spouse or significant other, would you guys say? I'd like to hear it from each of you.
Why don't you go first?
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Well, I think that we do like our separate time. Michael is up very early. He's in the office at 6:30 and I come in later. So we do have our separate time to come in and go out. And I think that we work on separate things. That I love doing creation and design, and that Michael doesn't like to do that. And I'm always thinking of fun things. I think just doing separate.
Yeah, I love the marketing. For me, it's a game. It's a challenge. If we tweak this, what response are we going to? I mean, I love that stuff. And, I also like teaching folks how to do the technical.
Right.
The biggest thing that I find is CPAs are so afraid to look stupid. They're so afraid to look bad. They so don't want to make a mistake. So they get caught up in the paralysis of analysis with regard to the technical work, because this is a different animal. Resolution controversy work is a different animal, but
Right.
They already have the credential. They already know their way around a 1040 and 1120. It's a small leap to look. Someone coming to you who owes $75,000 in income tax, hasn't filed in 4 years, and has a levy on their wages, there ain't a lot you're going to do to make matters worse. I mean, even if you made a mistake, nobody's going to know about it. I mean, so it's, and I try to tell them that, and, just by filing your power of attorney with a client who's in that position, you provide immediate relief. Look, the phone weighed 800 pounds for that person to dial the number to call you.
Yes.
Once they call you, that's like 90% of the game. I mean, if you don't drool on your tie and your marketing sets up your positioning, you're going to get retained by that client. And the minute you file your power of attorney, you step into the taxpayer's shoes. So now the IRS has to communicate directly with you, not your client. You know what kind of burden off the client's shoulder that is? It's tremendous.
I do. I used to do that. I know it very well. That's great. And also for them to hear you say, listen, I'll go down to the meeting with the examiner. You don't have to worry about that. That's like, what? I don't have to go?
Exactly. They get so nervous.
Yeah. So you guys launched this business and you had grown another business before. What did you do as far as scaling? So you do your launch and then you're like, okay, I got some money. Now I've got a lot of clients. Then what?
Well, the product led right into a membership. So that is the monthly reoccurring revenue.
Okay.
And then just different things. It's kind of in layers. So that's how I see things. You just add different layers. Then I had a vision of how to make that product our
domination system.
Right. How to make it better, because I'm a very visual. And then then sold it for $3,400. So I just had that. And then it was like, we should have another level of membership. And then we sold another so it was just kind of different layers adding on. I'm always thinking of how can I make the membership better, make it kind of like a pane of disconnect. And I've learned a lot from hearing you speak, because you are all about monthly recurring revenue. And so I always like to follow you and hear what you have to say. That's very helpful to me.
Yeah, so each of the launches have gotten larger and larger because we've built a list. I have more affinity with more people, so we do, a bunch of strategic partnerships or JVs. But the other thing that I also created was when I had my resolution business, I also co-founded with my partner and another gentleman a company called Tax Audit Defense.
Okay.
And we were Tax Act's sole provider of audit protection plans. So when a consumer went on to Tax Act to file their return, when they pressed the button, our landing page came up and said, in the rare chance if you get audited, for $39.95, we'll protect you, we'll represent you. So now Tax Act has like 6 million people file their returns, and the take rate was only about 2 or 3%, which was still a lot of money.
I say 2 or 3% of 6 million.
Yes, it's still a lot of money. We made a lot of money in that company. So what I did was I reversed the model, and because all of these models are opt-in plans, so I flipped it and made it a default plan. So we sell what I call the Audit Protection System and Toolkit, Audit Protection Plan System and Toolkit, where CPAs, I guarantee them if they follow my instructions, they get an 85 to 95% take rate, and each client is paying them an extra $79.95 for the silver level plan every single year. And now they're getting paid for all the busy work they never charge for. Because most CPAs, if they get a notice for their client, they just handle the notice, even if it takes them an hour.
Right.
No, you're not doing any work for free because they underestimate and undervalue their services. So we have members who make 50 grand, 70 grand, 20 grand, $100,000 that drops right to the bottom line because the client now feels they have their back.
So you looked for extra services that you could provide that were valuable, obviously, to the end customer, but also that just layered on to the things that you already had. It was really smart. And I love adding on to what was the tax filing company that you put the audit plan?
Tax Act.
Tax Act. So now, did you know somebody there?
No, I did not know. Although one of our third partner was more like an acquisitions guy, an M&A guy. So he made the contact there.
Okay. Because I would say a lot of people, I'm sure, would be like, it's such an easy way to get additional business, to form these strategic relationships.
Yes.
And you mentioned you have a lot right now. How do you go about identifying those and then kind of locking them down?
Again, on these launches that we do, and it's a different marketing. So, someone who wants the audit protection plan system is a much broader audience because you don't really need to be licensed to do that product. All you need to be is a professional taxpayer. So it's a much broader audience. So there's more potential customers for that. And we've done 3 or 4 launches.
We kind of do it annually, like November.
We do that one annually.
That one we don't market a lot, but we just kind of do it every year. And I think being also in business for 6 years, a lot of people have become successful, and people are hearing it. They've seen Michael. He does a lot of he's out there doing content videos. He's out doing Taxman on the street and different things. And I think people saying he's the real deal, and that anybody that comes in our membership, it's all about value. I mean, that's what I learned from all the people that we admire, is that if you're going to buy something from us, you're going to get more value beyond what you've invested. And that has helped our business model a lot.
Yep.
Now, you have events as live in-person events as a significant part of the business as well, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And so how have you been affected by and adapted with the whole shutdown process?
Yeah, that's like so tough because that's a pivot. Well, I mean, this would be we do our big event every August, and that's the thing I love doing. I love putting on events, and I make it an experience. And we just 2 weeks ago decided we really need to make it virtual because
there were too much risk, too much liability, and I have a high tolerance for risk. But this was like above my pay grade.
It doesn't seem like it's going in the right direction right now either. So
no. So
plus the hotel was very restrictive, and that was one of the. I mean, you couldn't hand out order forms. You couldn't hand out goodie bags.
You had to have a control crowd.
You had to hire a control crowd officer for every 50 people to be the mask police. It just wasn't going to work.
Right. It was like not good. So, but we're always learning. So we did the pivot. And so what we do is I just ask other people that we admire and trust, well, what did you do? How did you do it? And
we should be signing the contract actually maybe today or tomorrow with a virtual event company that's going to be producing this for us.
Right. So the interesting thing is, so when you open yourself to change, and that's really important to know to pivot, like if this isn't working, okay, then what do we need to do to make it work? And 2 things that we did. One is we know Robin Robbins, and she just did a virtual 3-day event for 4,500 people. She was one of the first to do
and the deal with her is that the hotel actually canceled on her. And this was back in April. She had 3 weeks to pivot from a physical to a virtual.
And she's amazing. So we wanted to know, how did she do it? So we got on a plane,
we just came back from Nashville last week.
Right. And she shared her whole experience, which was it's like, I have to hear this information over and over because it's a big thing to do, talking to different vendors that people have recommended. Yeah. And something that happened with Pedro, which is really interesting because he's doing the challenge, is we found out the person that we're signing with was doing his 3-day live event. And
great.
this interesting thing is his challenge led into the event.
Yeah, unbeknownst, he said that, and it's so fortuitous that we're doing it that way. He says putting a challenge in front of a 2-day or 3-day virtual event is like brilliant, even though we had no idea, because what we're going to do is we're going to fill the virtual with a lot of people who come to the challenge.
Fantastic.
Right. So I already have the event box, because that's me. I like to be like, how can I make it an experience that they show up, that you make them want to come before day one? And they will get this event box with swag plus the playbook where they'll be learning. We've already talked to our speakers. We have a whole stage. I mean, we're just like do what you got to do.
Nice. Now, are you guys doing the Sage and Blue one where you kind of method where you have the stage set up?
Yes.
Are you using them?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So is that out of North Carolina? Is that where that is?
Well, yes. However, they have a studio that may be ready here in California, possibly Burbank, because there's another gentleman who we both know who's having his 3-day virtual a week before ours with Sage. And they say he's doing it here in Burbank. So we may not have to go to South Carolina. We don't know yet.
Yeah, I know Sam, I've blanked on his last name, but Sam that owns Catalyst, who does.
Yes, and we've spoke to Sam.
Yeah, so Sam's got a studio that he built, Tony Robbins' studio in Florida, which is a $4.5 million studio that Tony just did his challenge from, who had several 100,000 people on.
Wow.
And so we're going to do our challenge before TNC to put people into the virtual TNC in the Burbank studio. Or not Burbank, in wherever Sam is. I don't know what city he's in, but it's in LA. So that'd be worth you guys looking into for sure.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you talked with Pedro Adeo, by the way, for those who were listening. So Pedro, who kind of created a product all around how to do challenges and was a consultant to us on ours as well. He and Pete Vargas both have done that a few times now and found it to be very effective. I know Tony just did. I forget how many thousands of tickets to UPW online Tony just sold, but that is a model that's just killer effective. That's great. So you guys are going to do that. You're doing it absolutely right. You've retained the best people again, which is great. And you're planning it. And as Roslyn mentioned, you're making it an experience, which is really key. That's awesome. I love that. Love it. Any other big pivots? Or, I mean, obviously that's a lot right there.
Right. One of the big pivots was when COVID hit and there was all this, stimulus and the CARES package and the PPP and the EIDL. I knew that my folks were on the front lines. I mean, people who are doing taxes are on the front lines with not only doing taxes, but all their clients had questions about, should I do the PPP? What's the difference between that and the EIDL? Is one forgiven and one not? How do I get it forgiven? So I brushed up on everything, and I taught like 6 or 7 webinars on the subject, and even created a resource center on the membership site for our members. So that was probably one of the first or biggest pivots when COVID first hit. But also I'm telling all my members is, look, this is not a long-term business strategy. Doing PPP loans or EIDL loans is not a long-term strategy. So don't get too comfy with it. Don't get too married to it. Your first and foremost is to help people out with IRS problems. So.
Right. That's awesome. Now, what are you guys most excited about right now?
Well, I think the challenge and the event. I mean, we're going into the unknown again. So every time we go into the unknown, there's 2 kinds of fear. If you took all the fear in the world and boiled it down, there's only 2 kinds of fear in the world. One is fear of losing something you already have. And the second is fear of not getting something you want. And, I just have to keep this in perspective, that fear is a mile long, a mile high, but paper thin. All you have to do is poke your finger through it and you're on the other side. So I keep reminding myself about that. So that's my words of wisdom on fear.
Right. I think with Michael, he's smarter than he relayed. He's very focused. And when he needs to learn something, he is so good at staying focused, and I'm like the cheerleader of this will be so much fun again. Like, what an adventure, and kind of thing. So that's how we work well.
Yeah, I'm the one who's like,
he's got his nose to the grindstone, and I'm cheering him on.
I'm the one who's anxious. I'm the one who's nervous, and I was going, yeah, you can do it.
That's what makes you guys such a great team. That's awesome. So thank you, first of all, both of you for taking the time to come today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
People that would like to get a hold of you, find out more about what you do, find out all the cool things that are going on, what's the best ways for them to connect with you guys?
Best way is they can go to the website, which is Roz, R-O-Z, strategies, plural.com. That's Roz Strategies, plural.com. There's some free trainings there. Or our YouTube channel has like 125 short training videos on tax resolution. And you can find that under Michael Rozbruch's Tax and Business Solutions Academy channel. It's R-O-Z as in zebra, B as in boy, R-U-C-H, Rozbruch.
Perfect. So YouTube, and is there a podcast or any other?
Yeah, I have a podcast too, and it's on all the Apple and Google and Spotify, and that's the Tax Resolution Success Show. So you can subscribe to the Tax Resolution Success Show.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to be here and hang out and share.
Thank you. Thank you, Roland. You're awesome. Thank you, man.
You are awesome.
Yeah, thanks.